Get the f*** out of here! Go home! We don't want you here. We don't like your kind here. We only like people in blue cars around here. One more. Don't honk at me. Don't honk at me, asshole. The gate is open. Time to go through. Are you ready for what's on the other side?
Nope. Oh, God dang it.
Saw traps are inventive. Some of them are pretty, crazily good inventive. What would you say are some of your favorite saw traps from the movies?
Let's see. It's always liked the razor wire maze from the original.
That's a good one.
That one was horrifying sounding. Which one? From the second movie, the syringe pit.
Oh, that one still gives me heebie-jeebies.
Let's see. Don't know. I can't think of too many more that I'm just like, those are definitely like my favorites.
I'd say the rack, where the guy's limbs are very slowly twisted and broken.
I don't like those as much because I don't like the ones that take the control away from the person in the trap and give it to somebody else. Know what I mean?
That's fair.
Like, I think the idea of, like, you having to be in control of whether or not you live or die by essentially maiming yourself to survive is, like, the terrifying concept. Whereas, like, the angel thing and the rack and stuff like that, like, they're brutal. Like, they're definitely horrible to, like, behold, you know, but, like, it's out of their hands at that point, you know. He's given the control to somebody that's not them, so it's not quite the same as the original concepts.
Well, I mean, honestly, my whole deal with saw traps is that a lot of them are very inventive, specifically from the first three films.
Some of those are, even the ones that are technically beatable, are like near impossible, so I'm interested how they're going to have a way to beat every trap, because there's definitely some ones that were actually designed to be unbeatable in the movies too. So. Well,
yeah. Well, the ones that were made by Amanda were 100% made to be unbeatable, because Amanda didn't want, Amanda was dedicated to,
she didn't get it, essentially.
Yeah, she was dedicated to just, killing people. Mm. She didn't care about the game or, teaching people a lesson. Yeah, but anyway. The whole deal with saw traps, I would love to know what this guy's logic would be on how to beat every saw trap. So let's check him out. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And you guys probably know that some of the most iconic horror films are the Saw movies. There are 8 of them to date, and they've had such a massive impact on popular culture that there's even a Simpsons episode featuring its ideas.
What the? I'm chained up like a common bicycle!
But let's get into the video, where we'll break down the movie as well as how you can beat all of the traps in it. The original Saw movie starts with 2 men waking up in a torture chamber chained to pipes by their ankles. Neither of them know anything about what's going on or why they're here. One of the men is a photographer named Adam, and the other is Lawrence Gordon, a medical doctor. Although they believe they've been chosen randomly, their storylines are actually very closely intertwined, but more on that later. In the middle of the room, we see a man lying on the floor who's holding a revolver in one hand and a tape recorder in the other. Both Adam and Lawrence then find microtapes in their pockets and play them. Adam's tape simply reveals that he must survive, while Dr. Gordon's tape says that he must kill Adam by 6 p.m. to escape this room and see his kidnapped wife and daughter again. On his tape, we also hear a voice in the background mention that he must follow his heart. This leads them to check the toilet that has a heart drawn on it. In it, Adam finds a bag with 2 saws and a bunch of pictures. He throws one of the saws to Lawrence but hides the photos from him. They try to cut the chains but soon realize that they're supposed to cut off the foot and chains to free themselves.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
And this is where there are some opportunities to free yourself without doing what's intended. The easiest way to overcome this is to cut through the rusty pipes.
Either that or try and break the lock. Because if I've seen anything from Lockpicking Lawyer, you basically can, there's ways you can jimmy the lock just...
Dude, there are a lot of locks that will open with concussive force. Like,
yourself without
there are not a lot of very good padlocks.
Right there, yeah. For it, like that right there, you could probably figure out a way to because all most locks are the little hook that's in there, and the lip on the hook is often not that thick. So enough applied pressure on it with not just your finger, like you could probably do it with this, but applied pressure with like stuff in the room, you could probably do it. Especially when Adam breaks his saw, when he breaks his saw blade, there's probably enough on the material on that where he could jimmy something in there and just crack it open. But anyway.
Or you could grab the toilet lid and
smash
using the holding it so it's like long ways like this.
Yeah.
And hitting it with this end of it, he could smack down on the lock. Try to break it open that way.
Yeah.
There are some opportunities to free yourself without doing what's intended. The easiest way to overcome this is to cut through the rusty pipes instead of the metal chains. Rusty metals are known to be far weaker than ones that aren't, and judging by the state of this disgusting bathroom, these pipes should be pretty soft.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, there's still another way. They could, for example, take the big solid toilet tank lid and try breaking the padlock that holds them to the pipes. The lid might eventually break, but forcing open a padlock with brute force has been shown to work in the past, so it's at least worth a try. The last thing you could do is cutting off a small piece of your foot instead of the entire thing. Either cut through the bone that sticks out of your foot or remove a part of your heel, depending on how the chains are attached. This would be extremely painful, but it's far quicker and better than cutting off your entire foot, but this one is probably the easiest. Anyways, now we get a flashback that reveals the first big chunk of clues regarding the villain of the movie.
So I'm assuming, I was thinking that he was talking about how to beat every single trap in the Saw series, but I think he's just talking about the first movie. This is only 10 minutes long and he's already gone for 2 minutes.
Two cops, Tap and Sing, who see the crime sites of two previous victims of the killer. The first one we see is a man who had to escape a small maze filled with razor wire. If he can't complete the task, he will be left there to rot. And this guy had the fairly interesting approach of throwing himself onto the wire. I don't know what he thought would happen, but if you're ever in this situation, you should do the exact opposite. Notice how there are no wires on the floor. So the first step you should follow to beat this is crawling on the ground with your stomach side down to not expose any of your major veins to the wire. And since the wiring seems to have been put in place rather loosely, you could try taking the underwear, put it around your hands, and use it to carefully push the wire out of the way. Now escaping this...
Yeah, because if you're already in there in your underwear, I know your jiggly bits might be at risk of getting cut, but I'd rather have a scar on my dong than, be dead.
Maze might take some time, but there's a good reason why he got 2 hours to complete it. Instead, what this guy did is panic and charge at the wire head on, which is not a good idea at all.
Nope.
But there's an even easier way to escape this, a way so easy it literally takes nothing. And this is simply doing nothing. If he does nothing, he's just left there. So if he's a guy with a family and lots of friends who are looking for him, they would have eventually discovered him. Now unfortunately he wasn't that type of guy, so he only got found after a couple of weeks. The police also find a jigsaw puzzle piece cut out of his back. This leads to our villain being dubbed as the Jigsaw Killer. Then we come to our second guy, who's named Mark, and this one is a little trickier. Mark was trapped in a room with glass on the floor.
This is one of the ones that seems nearly impossible to me.
We hear that he was injected with a poison. To survive, he must use the candle to illuminate the wall that has a hidden code to the safe, which holds the antidote. However, the code is written among a bunch of other numbers on the wall. Also, he's covered in flammable gel, so he must be careful with that candle. This puzzle is often misunderstood, but essentially you have these numbers on the wall, but the combination of the safe is written slightly differently. It's Mark's job to find these hidden numbers and enter them into the safe to get the antidote to the poison in his body. If you're in this situation, there's kind of only one solution, and that is being extremely careful with a candle. Hold it at an angle and far away from your body. The numbers on the wall...
like this. Like holding it instead
My
straight
first
up
thing
this.
I would have done, okay, so this strap sucks in general, because he put glass and shit on the floor, too, so the whole thing's going to be painful. But my first thing I would have done before grabbing the candle would be make my way to the wall and smear as much of the flammable stuff off of my hands and arms onto the wall as I possibly could.
Yeah, agreed.
are really big, so
It's
there's no
going to make
reason
you
to
less
get
likely to go up in flames.
your head this close to them anyways. When it comes to the glass, there is something you could try. Instead of stomping on it like this, you could try pushing the glass out of the way, but that only works if it's a thin layer of glass on the floor. Oh, and by the way, the reason Jigsaw kidnapped this guy is that he skipped work. He called in sick when he really wasn't, and that's apparently enough to justify setting him on fire.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
While at this particular crime scene, the police find a pen light. Tap wants to check the fingerprints on it, and they come back as Dr. Gordon's. This leads them to the hospital where he works. There we see him talk to a group of students about a patient with a brain tumor. One of the orderlies named Zepp interrupts him and informs us that his name is John. Soon after, Dr. Gordon is asked to speak to the police about the prints on the pen. Tap asks him to follow them down to the station where he witnesses a testimony with Amanda, the only known survivor of Jigsaw's games. She recalls how she woke up in a chair with a big machine strapped to her head. Then the TV turns on and we see the puppet Billy informing her about how the device will forcefully pry open her jaw and function as a reverse bear trap if she can't get the key from another man's organs. As she stands up from the chair, she removes the mechanical trigger and the timer to the trap goes off. She cuts the other guy open, retrieves the key, and manages to remove the mask. Amanda reveals to the police that she believes that her experience actually helped her with her drug addictions. Make of that what you will. To beat this one, you would firstly need to calm down. That's the key to most of these traps. Jigsaw wants you to panic without first getting a good sense of your surroundings, but you should do the opposite, and not start running around, as this trap gets triggered when you stand up and remove the mechanical trigger from the mask. So remain in the chair and carefully remove the trigger, and that way you have an infinite amount of time to remove the mask. The second way of beating this is demonstrated by a character called Hoffman, who is introduced in the later movies. He gets this trap put on him and he survives it by putting the mask in between two steel bars.
But that's because the design of the trap changed for this specifically. The reverse bear trap, the one that Amanda was wearing, had a much larger mandible front. It was huge. You wouldn't be able to fit it through the bars like this one does.
Also, how do you know those bars are definitely going to be available as well? They weren't available to her.
No.
The trap goes off, but is blocked from opening by the bars. Since the rooms the characters are in aren't empty, you can probably find two parallel pipes, or a small enough space to cram your mask into. Then you'll have more time to remove the mask. Yes, doing it this way can be quite painful, but again, it's better than dying. So now we return to Adam and Dr. Gordon, who slowly progress through their trap, before we get yet another flashback which also reveals a lot about the killer. We follow our two cops as they break into Jigsaw's.
Also, I've always kind of wondered about the science behind the reverse bear trap. If it would actually, basically blow up your head, or if it would just push against the top jaw hard enough to just tear your bottom jaw off, basically,
I'd say well, the force that your jaw can it would be required to remove your bottom jaw, it's quite a bit, because there's a lot of muscle, a lot of bone, and a lot of tendon there to keep it intact. But I would say enough mechanical force, the jaw would go flying off more likely than just the whole head just yeah. So I don't know. I think the reverse bear trap, they're I'd love to see kind of like a
Mythbusters type
sort of
thing.
like a Mythbusters thing, with not a real head
just
though.
Testing the science behind that, basically. In
Yes.
a way.
Lair. There, they discovered a man tied to a chair. Unfortunately, Jigsaw returns while they're snooping around. He then sets off the trap to kill the man. While the police officers try to stop the machine, the killer reveals that he has a sickness inside of him. They actually managed to beat this trap by shooting at it, so this one is given to us. However, as Tap stops paying attention, in a split second he gets his throat cut by Jigsaw, but manages to survive. The killer runs away but is pursued by Detective Singh, but he gets killed by another sneaky trap. This one, along with the one before that, are not really beatable, but it's also not a saw trap. It's not intended to be beaten, so we're not counting these. Back in our torture chamber, Dr. Gordon finds a box that includes his cell phone, which can only receive calls but not make them.
Which is bullshit, because every cell phone since I think 2001 automatically is enabled to dial 911.
As well as 2 cigarettes. With the cigarette comes a note that implies that Dr. Gordon can kill Adam by dipping one of the cigarettes in the poisoned blood of the man lying on the floor and making him smoke it. Lawrence tries making an outgoing call but only hears the phone's error message. This makes him remember what happened before. So we get another flashback revealing how Dr. Gordon was kidnapped and sedated in a parking garage after supposedly returning from work. In the flashback, he explains how he heard someone taking a picture of him shortly before he got attacked. The next thing he remembers is waking up in the bathroom. As we come back, Adam reveals one of the pictures he has been hiding from
Another
Gordon.
thing too, though, is like if you could dial out with that cell phone, I don't know if they had location capabilities to find you. Like, so you could dial 911 to let them know you're trapped in a random bathroom somewhere, but the idea of them actually finding you.
Well,
I mean, I guess having people looking for you as opposed to not having people looking for you is better than nothing.
Or you could basically, or with the information that he has here, be like, yes, my home address is this and that and blah, blah, blah. And thus that would lead them to Zepp.
I could at least send the cops over to his house to...
Well, that's his number one priority. I mean,
yeah.
like, his family.
In it, we see his wife and daughter tied up. Then Adam tells Gordon the last thing he remembered before he ended up here. He was developing photographs in his apartment when the power suddenly goes out, and while stumbling around his apartment, he gets overpowered by a man in a pig mask. Gordon then receives a phone call from an unknown number. He answers it, and it turns out that it's his wife and kid. His wife mysteriously brings up Adam's name and tells Lawrence that he shouldn't believe his lies, and that Adam knew about him long before today. Adam comes clean and confesses to Dr. Gordon that he has been hired by Tap to spy on him, as Tap believed him to be the killer. It turns out that Adam took his picture that night in the parking garage, but Lawrence wasn't coming back from the hospital. In reality, he lied about that, as he was returning from a motel where he was about to cheat on his wife with one of his students. Lawrence claims that nothing happened, while Adam states that he doesn't care if he covered himself in peanut butter and had a 15-hooker gangbang. That's not important to the story.
Orgy, but close.
Story, I just like mentioning it. Adam then reveals all of the pictures that were in the bag, and one of the photographs shows Zepp, the orderly at Dr. Gordon's hospital. This leads them to believe that he's the killer, and it is in fact Zepp who's holding Dr. Gordon's family hostage. However, as they figure this out, the clock strikes 6 p.m., which means that Lawrence's time to kill Adam is up, so his family will face the consequences. Zepp calls Dr. Gordon to tell him this, and he is about to shoot his wife, but she manages to free herself. A fight ensues, which leads to the gun being discharged many times, but it doesn't hit anybody. Dr. Gordon hears the shots over the phone and panics as he believes that his wife has been killed. In a state of desperation, he saws his foot off and grabs the gun from the body and shoots Adam in the shoulder. Back in the apartment, we see that Tap noticed the noise and entered the apartment to save Lawrence's family. Meanwhile, Lawrence's wife and kid escape. Since both Zepp and the cops suck at shooting, Zepp also manages to escape and is chased back to the torture chamber to at least kill Lawrence. As he arrives in the lair, Zepp manages to kill Tap. He then wants to kill Dr. Gordon too, but Adam, who was merely injured by the gunshot, manages to take Zepp out with a toilet tank lid. Lawrence escapes the torture chamber with his one remaining foot. Adam then finds one last tape on Zepp's body. This reveals that he's also merely a part of the game.
And one of the best endings of all time. I don't care what anyone says.
And it's revealed that he was injected with a poison, and he only kidnapped Lawrence's family in order to receive the antidote once he completed all the tasks mentioned on the tape. Then the body who has been there the entire time stands up, and we learn that it's John Kramer, the man with the brain tumor from the hospital. It turns out that he's the mastermind behind all the Jigsaw killings. He peels off the prop latex on his head and leaves the torture chamber with Adam being left to starve.
Badass.
Yep.
Bad ass. I don't care what anyone says. Also, Jigsaw wasn't going to leave Adam there intentionally. The key, which was supposed to be still in the tub, went down the drain because Amanda basically left it in there to basically go down. So yeah, chalk that one up to...
I always wonder what the point of that was too. It's like literally if the key was left in the bathtub and didn't go down the drain, he could have noticed that like immediately and just immediately like freed himself and went and got help for Dr. Gordon.
But that's the thing. I think the one thing was maybe he wanted Amanda to tie it to the end of like a long chain, and it would look like it went down the drain, and thus he would think that you know there's nothing he can do. But then he'd pull up the chain, and lo and behold, there'd be the key.
Yeah, but he probably also would have found it whenever he was using the bathtub plug in that case to get the tape recorder.
Yeah, I guess.
Who knows?
I'll have to go back and check and see like if there would be any logical explanation as to how or why the key would not have been found initially.
Yeah.
But all right. Anyway, so yeah, this was how to beat every saw trap, and it's from the first one. I thought this would be for all of them, but now realizing is like, yeah, this. I wonder if he's released any more. Ah, he has. So he's released one for basically every Saw movie.
So it's Hit Start, by the way. I don't think we've said his name so far.
Oh yes, Hit Start. So beat all the traps in Saw 2, Saw 3, Jigsaw.
Yeah, so we might have to check out the sequels later.
Saw traps that were unbeatable, which basically all the ones Amanda had planned. Every trap in Saw 3D, Saw 6, Saw 5. Yeah. I was gonna say Saw 5, the one where the guy literally like jams the pin in his neck and survives that way. That's one of my favorite ones, dude.
God.
Well, no, it's an emergency tracheotomy.
Yeah, no, it's just the thought of it is just horrible sounding.
I agree.
Not to mention, like, imagine like you're used to breathing by. And I know, like, I can't even imagine what that would feel like to be breathing through a hole in your neck instead of your mouth and, like, nose. You know what I mean? That would be so weird.
It would be, but honestly, breathing is one of the more natural, like, phenomena that humans are used to. And any way it can be achieved, our body looks to do it. And that's why, suffocation is one of the more terrifying ways to go, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're going to move on from this. This was Hit Start with how to beat every Saw trap. Yeah, this was good, and we'll see if we can't do any more of these. So until next time, everybody, signing off, I'm Nate.
I am Nick.
Y'all be good people. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.